Hello and welcome back to the channel of Two Wheeled Nonsense and a man standing in a lay-by of motorbikes. And in this video, I'm going to talk about my motorbike, the motorbike I bought last year, my 2022 Yamaha MT10 SP, the Gen 2 version. So this is still the current version of the MT10 for the time being. And I'm going to tell you what I've liked about it, what I've not liked about it, some flaws that I might have found, some improvements I've made, and all the rest of it. There, let's get it into shot and let's get on with it. So why did I do it? Why did I buy a Yamaha MT10 SP? Well, there are several reasons, some of which are born out of excitement, some out of practicality, and some out of undoing my own prejudices. See, I've probably ridden more than 300-400 motorbikes doing this job and just being a biker. So the ones I always actually spend my own money on, I do it for a reason, because they're special. And the main reason I bought an MT10 SP is because I love super nakeds. I love upright naked bikes with sports bike performance, but good comfort for touring and all the rest of it. And I've come off adventure bikes, I've had sports bikes, and have super nakeds is my jam at the moment. So a kind of boring reason why I bought this one though. You see, I love the KTM 1290 Super Duke R, the Gen 3 bike. I wanted to buy one of those. Couldn't afford to insure one at all. With 15 years, no claims, being a journalist kind of makes your premiums go that way, actually, not that way. And, well, you do feel like you're doing that to the insurance companies, but whatever. This was only £500 to insure for the year. It was cheaper than my KTM 1290 Super Adventure. And I hadn't ridden many Yamahas in my career. And then I started riding them, reviewing them, and I actually kind of fell in love with the brand a little bit. They kind of bikes had a naughtiness about them and a character about them, most of them anyway, that you don't get from people like Honda and Kawasaki and people like that. And then I rode an MT10 about a year and 3 months ago. I shared my first ride of that bike on this channel. It was the one with the turquoise wheels. And that blew me away. It just was an exceptional road bike, not just because it had 165 horsepower, but it had an amazing character, the engine, the crossplane 4, we'll get into it, makes an amazing noise, and it just felt like a good bike for grown-up sized people on the road. It wasn't too sporty, it wasn't too firm. And I thought the SP version with the Erlin suspension, or the electronically adjustable suspension, or the rest of it, that automatically does like your preload and stuff like that, and the damping, that would be good on the road. I didn't test ride the SP, I just bought it because I thought I like the basic ingredients, the SP will be the one for me. So yeah, awesome fun, amazing character, and also cheap to insure, slightly boringly. This particular bike, the one I bought, is, I think, the first Gen 2 MT10 SP that ever came into the UK. It was a Yamaha UK press and marketing bike. So yeah, there are videos out there of this going around Cadwell Park with Chad, one of my mates, riding it, and also around the Isle of Man TT circuit. I don't have a problem with that because I know how fastidiously manufacturers look after their press bikes, and this was in mint condition. I bought it with just over 1,000 miles on it. I got a really good deal on it, yes, but I still paid a fair wedge for it. I've now done an extra 3,000 miles on it. This is what I found out about it. I found out that I really love it. It's one of the best bikes I've ever owned, and I can't see myself replacing it anytime soon, but I am going to mod it. Yeah, the thing that first blew me away about the MT10, the reason I bought it, is because the engine's amazing. That 998cc crossplane inline 4 doesn't feel like any other four-cylinder motor on the market, apart from perhaps the V4 in the Aprilia Tuono, because this feels a lot like a V4. The way it delivers its power, also the sound, it's amazing. But this isn't a review. I've already done a video of this bike up against the non-SP version of the MT10, so click up there to go and watch that. I can never do it the right way around. But yeah, this engine is the reason I love this bike, but it's also part of the reason why you'll get told off about buying one of these on internet forums, because the fuel economy is not great. I don't particularly care about fuel economy, despite the fact I do lots of touring. I used to tour on a Ducati 1198. That did 75 miles before the fuel light came on. So I just don't care. I need to get off after a while anyway. But actually, 42.5 mpg is what I've averaged over the past 3,000 miles on this. I don't think that's that bad. I've got less than that on a GS and on most four-cylinder BMWs. So why are we whinging? Really, it's because the tank is only 17 litres. I would like an extra litre or two. At the moment, I can do 120 miles before the fuel light comes on if I'm cruising and being reasonably sensible, or it can come on at 100 miles if you're proper caning it. Even when I'm touring, I tend to stop every 100 miles to stretch my legs and fill up anyway. So it's not been a problem. I wouldn't let the fuel economy of this bike put you off buying one, because it's a hoot. It's great. I've also put GB Racing engine covers on it. Now I did that because I thought I was going to take this on some track days. I've not done that yet because I am lame and I am too busy. But this bike did fall over in the wind when it was parked up and we had a massive storm. I had a cover on it, I had a top box on it, which I got into in a bit, and the bike fell over. It's just quite annoying, really. But it was saved by those GB Racing engine casing protectors. There's a little scuff down here. That was it. I had to replace the bar end, but that was the only damage from falling over in the wind. So I'm super impressed with the GB Racing stuff. It's really high quality. All the bolts are lovely and they send you all the right stuff. The instructions are clear. So yes, I'm going to plug GB Racing crash bungs. But let's talk about the rest of the mods I've done to it. Yeah, mods. There's more on this bike than you might think in terms of modifications. I've modded this. You could argue I've old manned this to be comfortable for touring, because that's one of my favorite things to do. I go abroad at least twice a year at the moment to do kind of war stuff, find some nice roads, go and check out the latest video series I've done where I go and look at a load of World War II stuff while riding motorbikes, probably a bit too quickly on the public road, but whatever, it's France, it doesn't matter. So yes, I've got the touring screen on there. That is good, that stayed on. I'm not really sure it makes a massive difference to me over just the general naked look, but it puts the wind slightly higher up on my chest than the standard screen. So that has stayed. It's also got radiator and oil cooler guards. They came on it because it doesn't come with them as standard. You do want them because the oil cooler and radiator are quite precariously placed. It also came with a brake lever protector. As I said, this is a press bike that's done some work on track, so you need one of those. What else have I done? It's got Yamaha's integrated heated grips on it. They are really good. They get very hot and they're integrated into the dash, so you just use the little scroll wheel to turn them off and on. I'd recommend them. I've also fitted the comfort seat, which is really expensive. It's like 300 quid from Yamaha. I got it for about 250 from a dealer on eBay. It doesn't feel massively different to the regular seat, but now I've done a few thousand miles on it, it has softened up and I can do big days on this without too many problems. It's got this center patch on this suede here, some white stitching. That does soak up the water when it rains, so you do get wet bum, but if it's raining, I'm wearing Gore-Tex anyway, so I don't care. The mirrors. In my review of this bike, I whinged about the mirrors not being long enough here to see past your elbows. Yamaha very helpfully said, oh, if you fit the ones from, I think it's the Tracer 7, they look the same, but they're a bit longer. So these are, I think, a Tracer 7 mirrors that I've put on, and they are longer, so I don't have to duck my head on my elbows to see behind me, which sounds like a small thing, but it's made a real difference when I'm doing rides. I'm not like this. What else have I got? I've got a RAM mount here of a Garmin mount. That just plugs into the USB that's down here. There's a 12-volt socket, a full-sized one on all MT10s. So I've got one of those little USB to 12-volt adapters, so I can have two USB-A things plugged into there, which is great. I've also got a top box rack. It's an official Yamaha top box rack for the MT10, and I've also got, I think it's quite a small top box from the Yamaha range, which goes on the back, which again makes it very handy for touring. And then people see an MT10 with a top box on it and they tell you off because it's a super naked. What else have I done to it? GB Racing protectors, I've talked about that. Yes, tyres. I put Metzeler Roadtech O2s on this. I got them from Metzeler to review. I did that. They are brilliant. They're very good in the wet. They are still really good fun in the dry. I think they'll probably be okay-ish at my pace on a track day, but if you're a serious track nerd, you would want something stickier. But even fast road riding, they are brilliant. And if you get caught out in a shower, you can still ride really quickly on them. So I recommend them. Right, let's talk about the bad stuff. Let's talk about the bad stuff. And I don't just mean your search history. Right, what don't I like about my own bike? Well, I said this wasn't going to be a review, and I will do a little bit of riding in a minute probably, but just in case I don't. The turn-in on this bike is not as razor sharp or super fast as it is on most other super naked. This has got a slightly more measured turn-in. It still handles really well. It feels extra stable on the side of the tyre, and the electronic suspension does an amazing job of going between really firm and super soft and comfy. And I love that kind of bipolar nature about the bike, but it doesn't have the razor sharp turn-in of modern super naked, or really modern super naked, a super fighty one. But people might also not like the riding position on this because it is reasonably upright. It's not got that much weight over the front end. I find it a really nice compromise between being comfortable and being sporty. But I know some people might think all these bars should be a bit lower, and lots of Americans put clip-ons on these, which I'm sure doesn't ruin it whatsoever. And I'm sure the people in the Yamaha factory have got no idea what they're doing when it comes to setting a bike up. Other things, the brakes. Yes, you get braided lines on an SP compared to the non-SP version of the MT10. That does improve the kind of feel of the brakes, and the power is good, but I still want to change the pads to something a bit bitey and a bit grippier at some point. But yeah, they're not as strong as something with styleline calipers on it. I'm sure Yamaha will end up sticking styleline calipers on it next year, because they've just done that to the MT09 SP. That poor lady jogging past is wondering while I'm licking my motorbike screen. I'm not licking it. I'm trying not to lick it. Another ergonomic thing, the bars are actually quite narrow. I would sometimes wish the bars were a bit wider. My hands end up off the ends of the grip sometimes. Again, it's not a massive issue. You might have noticed that the screen is quite small. It's just over 4 inches. Now, compared to all the modern things from Ducati and KTM, that is diddy. But it's very clear, I like it. Yeah, there are a few different modes to it, but it's generally speaking easy to read, but it's not always massively easy to use because it's controlled using a little scroll wheel down here, and that's your throttle hand. So that's quite hard to do accurately without giving it a load of throttle. When you're in the most sensitive throttle mode, I have gone to change what I'm seeing on the screen and I've done a power wheelie, which apparently isn't Rossborough approved riding, but whatever. Now, because I'm a half-wit, there's a few things I forgot to mention while I walk around the bike. Firstly, Yamaha indicators, they do pop off if you put a bike cover on it, so you get used to putting them back on. They're designed to pop off. This is super dirty, the wheels are very dirty, but they're a lovely shade of blue when they're clean. That is titanium. I did actually get a little scrape on that when it fell over, forgot to mention that. And the headers are titanium as standard as well. So you can get a titanium link pipe in the middle from a Krapovich, but it's like £1 million. My one's just going to be normal steel or something. And yes, when I come to decat this comes off. There's some cables operating a butterfly valve. I have to chase them up and remove them as well, but otherwise it looks like quite a nice, easy job. I love the polished swing arm. It's got a good back brake on it as well. And yeah, it's nice and easy to clean if you care about that stuff as well. There's not too many fussy bits on it. And this is metal, so if you're a magnetic tank bag pervert, you'll be fine. Sorry, those are the bits I forgot to mention. Oh, you don't get the belly pan on the non-SP either. Oh, you get a gold chain on the SP as well. But anyway, this isn't an SP versus non-SP video, but I like that. Right, there are a couple of things I've not mentioned about my bike that I do really like about it. And I think this is a fairly boring thing, but fairly underrated. So I'm 6'3" and I don't fit on some bikes, but on this I've got loads of room for my legs. It feels like a proper size. I'm not too scrunched up on it, but it still feels sporty-ish, I guess. Secondly, it fires up first time every time, even when I've not ridden it for a month or so, when it's been sitting in a press workshop somewhere else while I've borrowed other bikes. It just fires up on the button. It never stumbles, it never throws up electronics errors, it never goes wrong at all. And coming from a KTM 1290 Super Adventure, that was always very fussy, being a big twin, about battery voltage and all the rest of it. And it often just gave me the vibe that maybe one day it would leave me stranded with the occasional suspension error or what have you. This just feels rock solid. This also feels quite nicely finished as well, which I like. I like polishing this, I like cleaning it, and it's not, as I said, a pain to clean either. Now, I'm not going to go for a long mad ride because I can't really round here, and I suppose that is one downside of this bike is it's so powerful and it's so fast that it eggs you into riding it like a bit of a knob. I'm okay with that, but it does mean, in the UK at least, I don't feel too comfortable filming on this bike for YouTube because you end up wanting to hear the good noise, which happens close to the 11,500 RPM redline, and by the time you're up there in first gear or second gear, you can go to the prison and drop the soap and all the rest of it. It's not a great YouTube bike, but just such a brilliant engine. It's just got stacks of mid-range. Like, you can just accelerate about 5,000 RPM, it wakes up, and then you get a great noise and off you go. One thing I dislike about it is that somewhere between 5, 6, 7,000 RPM, somewhere in there, I'm not usually looking down there when I'm doing this, there is a big dip for emissions in the mid-range. Otherwise the mid-range is really strong, especially for an inline 4. It's crazy, it's just like a V4 really. But I would like to smooth that dip out, and we'll talk about that in a minute, about how I plan to make this a bit faster. It's just, I don't know, it is a really lovely bike to ride. I flick through the automatic suspension modes really often. I mostly stick it in AE2, which is like an automatic mode, but kind of a Goldilocks mode, not too firm, not too stiff. It gives you loads of confidence in the corners. And then A3 is soft, so if I get onto a crappy bit of motorway, I'll stick it in A3 mode, and it's a really noticeable change in the suspension. It's lovely, it gets all pillowy and floaty. You wouldn't want to attack a twisty road in A3, you'd stick it back in A2, and A1 is really racetrack mode, because that gets properly firm. And then there are 3 manual modes where you can adjust how much rebounding and compression and all that stuff you've got at each end of the bike, and it's actually really easy to do as well. Downside, the quick shifter blipper is good when you're on it and high up in the revs, but it's not like Yamaha's latest Gen 3 quick shifter technology that's on the new MT09 Tracer 9 GT Plus and XSR 900 GP. That will let you kind of downshift on an open throttle, upshift on a closed throttle as well. This can't do that. This is an old school up and down quick shifter blipper, and it's great when you're on it. It's not so great when you're kind of just bimbling, so I use the clutch at low RPMs, as you probably should, to prolong the life of your gearbox anyway. So that's a minor quibble. Really, the stuff that dates this bike is the screen, and honestly that's about it. Now, my dream is that next year Yamaha brings out a new MT10 SP with the Brembo styling calipers that they've just put on the MT09. This doesn't really need them, but when you're going quite fast and piling into corners at God knows how much, you kind of want better brakes. And these are fine. I'm working with them, it's alright, but you know, if I'm paying 16.5 grand, which is what a new one of these costs, you might want Brembos. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do with this bike, because obviously the R1 has been killed off. They can't homologate the engine for all the latest Euro stuff, so they've just sacked off the R1 because I think they sold 40 or 50 last year in the UK. And there's lots of debate about whether the MT10 will suffer the same fate. I don't think it will, because it's a much more popular bike in Europe, being a naked bike. So hopefully they'll find a way to make this live on. And I will flippantly say this is a naked bike with an R1 engine. It's not. The engine is based on the R1's cross-plane inline 4, but it's got loads of differences in the crankshaft, the valve train, the pistons and all that kind of stuff. You're not going to get R1 power out of an MT10 engine, but they're obviously very closely related other than that. And as I'll say in a minute when I do my outro, I have got plans to take this closer to an R1 in terms of power, but I'm not going to get there. But anyway, if I was going to suggest that you watch another one of my videos, go and watch my most recent tour series on this bike around Europe, because I do some fast riding and some faster cornering, and this bike is, honestly, I can't wait to get on it. I just can't. It's so comfortable, it's so powerful, it's so characterful. That engine just sounds just amazing, but also but it does make me respect it as well, despite the fact it's got electronics looking after me. The handling it's a bit slow to turn in, as I've said, but it feels really good lent over. The chassis feels amazing, and I do need to take it on track, even though apparently I will run out of ground clearance quite quickly, but whatever, I'm not very fast anyway. I should probably just lose a few kilos. But I love riding it. Handling, the acceleration, the noise, the comfort, even the touring ability ticks all of my boxes at the moment, and the only thing I could ever really contemplate replacing it with is the next MT10 if there is one, with that new quick shifter blipper, with different brakes, with maybe different looks, although I clearly don't care about looks very much. Have you seen how I dress? But anyway, yes. Oh yeah, it's got cruise control as well, but you can only do it in 4th gear and upwards. I would like the new MT09's cruise control that can go, I think, 2nd or 3rd gear as well, as long as you're doing 30 miles an hour. Actually, a word on naughtiness. You can adjust lots of the settings on the fly, so the electronic suspension, slide control, traction control, and the throttle mapping. You can change all of those on the move. And the throttle mapping, I've got it in power 2 at the moment, which is a medium throttle mapping. Then you've got 3, which is very soft, useful for the rain, and then 1 is much more one-to-one between your wrist and the throttle butterflies. You can get into trouble in power mode 1. I like it when I'm dialed into the bike and I've been riding quite fast. That makes it feel really fast, and you have to be careful because you will do lots of accidental power wheelies when you're in power mode 1, especially when you're overtaking. But I think that's quite exciting if you're not on YouTube opening yourself up for prosecution every time you do it. But I do change all the settings on the fly quite a lot. It's just a bit of a fiddle because you have to use the headlight flasher to go between them. It doesn't actually flash the headlights, and then the up and downy thing here does give good lever. It's got very good brake lever feel. The only other downside that I've not mentioned about the engine is low down, 1st gear up to about 50 miles an hour. It feels lumpy. It feels like a V-twin or a V4. It's got a kind of chuntriness to it, where it just wants to go a little bit faster than 15 miles an hour 1st gear once you've got the clutch out. But I think that's offset by the fact the engine sounds bloody amazing. again, go and watch my European tour videos where I open it up a bit more. Now, another thing I do love about this bike is how naughty it feels. And again, it comes down to the engine really being the star of the show. Just in second gear, first gear, third gear, if you're hard on the gas through about 6,700 RPM, it will start doing power wheelies like there's no tomorrow. You'll find crests, you'll be getting on the throttle off crests unnecessarily, even just accelerating in a straight line. Now, it has got electronic lift control, there's different levels of it, so you can always have wheelie control on, which I tend to do, and still have some fun, or you can turn it off, so you have no wheelie control, but you still have traction slide control enabled. So I'm rubbish at wheelies, I'm a little bit scared of them, but I do like doing the odd power one off crest and things like that. It makes me feel alive, and this bike is amazing at them. It's really smooth, it comes up more predictably than my old KTM did. I adore it for that. So even if you aren't a massive hero, this bike can actually make you feel like one. And it sounds like this. Oh no, I'm already doing speed limit. That's the thing, inline 4, it's still an inline 4. So first gear will run to 70 miles an hour, I think, on this, ish. Not good for your license, that's the only downside. But you're not buying a litre bike for that. Well, thank you for making it through that giggling and that waffle, but hopefully I've kind of explained why I love this bike so much and why I think it's probably the best bike I've ever owned and why I'm hoping to keep it for a while. But I do have some more plans for this bike. This isn't the end. I'm about to take it to Europe again for a long weekend to do more war stuff in the Vosges Mountains, which feels like a repeat of last year, but I don't care because I love doing it so much. Hopefully I'll find some new war stuff to look at. Also, I just love coming out of every corner in the Vosges Mountains in second gear on this, going a bit like that, giggling, making great noise and all the rest of it. And that's my next plan actually, is to get a bit more noise and a bit more performance out of this, because as I might have mentioned in the riding bit, it's got a bit of a flat spot in the revs like all modern bikes do because of emissions, but I've just had a length of pipe turn up at my house, which for once isn't for felching. This is to decat this, and I know I live near a very busy bike road and I hear decatted R1s going past every weekend. I love the noise, but lots of people don't like the volume of it, so I don't want it to be that loud. So I've got a Leo Vince decat pipe for this bike, which actually has a little muffler built into it, so it's not completely straight through, and then I'm either going to leave the stock end can on it because it's already titanium lightweight, or sticking a Krapovich with a baffle on the end so I can further quieten it down. Now, I'm going to take this to a company over in Essex, where I'm from, in Colchester, called Seton or Seton Tuning. There's a guy there called Phil, who's a genius with R1s, and he's just developed a power-up kit for the MT10, which obviously involves a dyno session, remapping it for the decat, but also putting a new bell mouth kit on the engine as well, and also doing some stuff with the crank that I don't fully understand. But basically it takes one of these, which will do 145 horsepower at the rear wheel, maybe 150 on a good day, and bear in mind it's 166 claimed at the crank, and it will take it up to more like 160 horsepower at the rear wheel. So it's a massive power increase, it smooths out the mid-range, it removes the speed limiter, and apparently just makes it an absolute riot to ride, and it's already a lot of fun. So anyway, that is my plan. Make it more powerful a little bit, but not too much noisier, and then it will be a monster. Now, I can't do that till after my tour around Europe because of timings, but next time you see this after the tour, hopefully we'll be doing a video on how I've made it faster and scarier, more inappropriate for UK roads. But anyway, I've waffled on way too long. Thank you for watching this. If you're interested or have any questions about the MT10 SP, leave them down in the comments and I'll do my best to answer you. And if you want to see me do anything else to it, then again, let me know. Appreciate you watching. Go down to the comments and call me a knob, and I'll see you next time. Subscribe, like, comment, share, blah, 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 ring my bell. Anyway, I'm about to ride home on this and it will ring my bell, hopefully.